So hello, everybody. Good evening. For those in the audience that I do not know and those who might be online, my name is Phoenix Kawamoto. I am the Community Education Coordinator for the town of New Paltz and the Office for Community Wellness, also known as the OCW. We like to shorten it because it is a mouthful to say it multiple times. So I don't know how many of my fellow department head colleagues are going to have the opportunity to present like this, but I am extremely grateful for that, to be able to provide an update and give folks a review of the budget requests that are coming from this department, which is now currently a department of 2. Now, let's see if we can get the Yeah, it's happening. So just so folks are also aware, the Office for Community Wellness, I first started in the town working here through managing a federal grant project called the Drug-Free Communities Grant. And through that work, when that grant was coming to a close in 2016, the leadership of the town board created this position that allowed for the years of infrastructure development around community collaborations and partnerships with organizations to be able to keep the work moving forward. What this slide shows is the one pager that I had created to try to help members of the community understand really the complexity and the science behind what this department does. Right. It is often not understood when it comes to prevention and public health approaches. So the diagram that you see has 4 key cornerstone areas that are evidence-based prevention strategies or practices. Okay. If you look to the what's in the 12 o'clock position and marked by green, it says provide information. And on this sheet, there are a number of different ways, right? Because people get information in many different ways, and you cannot just provide it in one way or in one format, right? So you need to meet people where they're at and provide information accordingly. So we utilize community video announcements. We have electronic campaigns. We have different websites that house different types of information, especially the opioid overdose prevention and response team website, which I encourage people to visit and is now accessible through NP for New Paltz, thrivingtogether.org. Again, it's all about, if people don't know where help is and how to access it, they're not going to access it. That's an added barrier. If you move to the 3 o'clock position, it says enhanced skills. A lot of times people want to help, right? They have family members or they're dealing with life situations, but don't know what to do. What is helpful? So we provide many different types of training, either through our department or through the numerous community partners that we have. When I first started in this community almost 13 years ago, this department is coming up on its 8th, closing out its 8th year in existence. The partners that we had at that point was about 45 organizations, which was substantial. Now that number is over 100. So as the work continues to grow and expand, especially with a pandemic and a post-pandemic time, and the various needs that we are encountering across the ages in our community and the nation, it's really important to help give people the skills and the information that they need. So we provide Narcan training. We did 18 of those just this year, specific to New Paltz. Mental health first aid training, a trauma-informed and resiliency responsive training, which I have just been trained in through the state and will be able to provide free of charge in the community starting in the very near future. And numerous other trainings. Right. We provide support. Sometimes support is through an event like Recovery Fest, 7th annual. That event has grown tremendously too. We're going to have over 25 different organizations this year, plus about 9 different health practitioners, holistic health practitioners, donating their time and services. This is not just a New Paltz team effort. It is beyond New Paltz. It has always been New Paltz and Ulster County through the work that I've been doing over the years, but now it's expanded into the Mid-Hudson region. Reducing barriers. There are many things that get in the way of people accessing help. And so we work to reduce barriers and enhance access, identify gaps, and we work again with our partners to do that. Now, I apologize that I didn't have the time to update. I noticed that this does not show that there is now a second person who is part of this department. For most of my time here, it was a department of one, and now it's a department of two. As of March 25th this year, Diane Fossey joined the team as the community relations specialist. And she has a number of different activities in specific areas, and you'll learn more about that in a minute. So 2024 is a year where we are really seeing a dramatic, I shouldn't say dramatic, an exciting and inspirational increase. It feels dramatic to me because it's a long time and a lot of work and a lot of heart that's gone into the work over my almost 13 years here. But we're seeing an increasing number of, we're doing an increased number of activities. We're seeing increasing number of participants, members of the community who are enthusiastic and really grateful for the opportunities that are being provided, as well as exciting and important collaborations like with Margaret Wade Lewis and Elting Library, Historic Huguenot Street. There's really important work that we're able to do with the help of our partners. When we look at the data, this is going to be kind of a snapshot of some of what's happening and when it's happening, where it's happening, right? And who the outreach is. Sure. So this chart shows on the left, the furthest left column is the programs, efforts, and events that have been taking place this year or are scheduled for this year. A number of them have, of course, taken place because we're now into September. However, we are now heading, our whole year is busy, but really from September to December, it is extremely busy in my department. And we are anticipating a tremendous amount of additional activities and so forth that are going to also be in the planning stages right now that are multi-generational and through the Thriving Together effort. So those numbers are going to increase, but for right now, they're not too shabby, so to speak, in that if you tally up the different categories of types of events, we have provided nearly 70 different activities, events, community outreach events, Narcan trainings, programming for E&L students, different ways that we have interfaced with the community to help connect. And again, at a time where we're facing a lot of mental health challenges, a lot of impact from many different things happening in our country and in our culture, we're also recovering from a pandemic. And what is unfolding from that is continuing to ripple out. So you will hear a lot, if you haven't already started to hear a lot, about the epidemic of isolation and loneliness. Diane Fossey and myself are putting together a lot of content around that. Diane's been doing some research on the local, how it's being experienced locally. And we are working with partners in our mental health service providers networks to look at how we can help and assist. Because that is a big factor and impact across the board. Physical health, emotional health, financial health, social health, spiritual well-being is all impacted by loneliness and isolation. And while we have the appearance of being the most connected ever, right, with all our devices and things, we're actually the opposite. And how that is impacting people's lives is really, it is very, it's scary. And it's something that is serious and needs to be taken seriously. So you'll see on there all of those different things that have been provided or will be provided this year. You'll notice the color coding because while I had them very nice and neat in a little graph, right, there's a lot of crossover. When you do an event, you're not just providing information to somebody, right? It might be an event where you're also teaching skills, right? And hopefully you're gathering information and maybe you're also working on enhancing access and barriers, right? You're listening, you're gaining information and working with partners right there on the scene. So there's a lot of crossover between these areas. And it's important to note that there's a lot happening at one particular event, much more than what usually meets the eye. One of the areas that we've been focusing a lot in our outreach efforts there's been two in particular. One is newsletters and connecting, meeting people again where they're at. So we have it in print form, we have it in electronic form, we have it in English, we have it in Spanish. We're working very hard to improve access and availability to information and resources where there are language barriers, in particular with our members of our Spanish-speaking community. If you look if you look at the website, you will see, like the Opioid Overdose Prevention and Response Team website, that website is now completely bilingual. We're working, our materials are going out English and in Spanish. The New Pulse Thriving Together, the NP Thriving Together website is being overhauled right now. So right now it's primarily in English. However, there are all of the flyers and stuff that are posted are bilingual. I will be working on the translation and working with somebody with that. So we are moving in that direction. Diane has created a monthly memo newsletter as well as a quarterly newsletter that is going out. That started in May. Again, she came on board March 25th. In May, the first edition went out, 20 people signed up. We are now 14 weeks in since it was initiated, and there's nearly 140 people have signed up. 17 people have signed up to be volunteers. And those are just the people that have signed up. There's numerous community members who've come up to me saying, I want to help out, please call me, right? So the level of community involvement and engagement is again, it's inspiring. This is what the Drug-Free Communities grants were created for. The vision of that grant was to provide a community enough support and leeway so that the community could determine what was needed and what would work within that community to meet its local needs and rally across the sectors in the community to make community change happen. And there's a long history of that here. We're in the second decade of this work in New Paltz. That's substantial. That hit me today. This is year 13 of my tenure here. 5 with a grant, 8 with the town as a town employee. We are extremely lucky to have a community so committed to the vision and the work that needs to be done here. The other piece is our social media outreach. Again, we have to meet people where they're at, and they're on their devices, right? I have 2. I'm so lucky. I have 2 phones. But we work with a social media consultant that is part of the contractual line of my budget. I have 3 lines. You'll learn more about those in a second. We started working with Aaron LeCan at the end of 2021, September. At that point, in 4 months, we reached 5,000 people. And we were like, all right, you know. The following year, that number went to 33,000, more than 33,000. And in 2023, that number again increased to 58,000 people. And this year, we are tracking to go even further because, again, this is just till August. We're going into the 4 busiest months of my year. And we're already at almost 52,000 people reached. It shows in the work that we're doing. We use our Facebook and Instagram accounts to share information about upcoming events and so forth, but also the resources, the trainings, the things that we're doing. And we will be rolling out video content again in the near future that Diane and I have been preparing for around loneliness and isolation and how to access resources, how to identify it as an issue, and where do you turn, and how do you get involved? So we are working in that way. Again, I mentioned, right, that I have 3 budget categories that I'm responsible, right, for. Contractual, which includes a lot of your everyday kind of business needs, right? Internet, phone, the website, the tech, right? SurveyMonkey, which allows me to do the surveys, right, to identify areas of shared passion and purpose so that we are now utilizing that data for our planning to create multi-generational programs, right? So all of these things play an essential role in how you get to the goal, right? Translation services. We have an individual who we will be working with again at Recovery Fest, who will be providing consecutive interpretation as well as, I'm gonna get that word. It's not happening, but in the moment.
Concurrent?
Don't know if it's concurrent, but simultaneous. So simultaneous. So we are in the process of having that dialogue, and him and his business partner did an amazing job last year. And the whole team agreed, yes, please. We need to bring that back. So we are making strides in that effort. The media outreach consultant I mentioned, mileage reimbursement, our Shutterstock for $29 a month to have images to include in as part of our design and our outreach, our domain names and our Zoom account. My purchasing line includes supplies for the cafe program. The cafe program happens at the high school. Cafeteria Alternative for Everyone. It is a program that Jim Tinger of the New Pulse Youth Program and myself were running for a number of years. Jim is more the lead on that, and my program assists. This year we I assisted staff there on Mondays. I was there for, we provided 16 days of programming while we were there from January to June. And the program is starting again at New Paltz High School next Friday. And we'll start as Fridays only first to kind of see how things go, and then we'll expand if we need to. Office supplies, the Thriving Together program support is a small portion of the budget to help fund some of those free programs, right? This is a community funded program, taxpayer, right? And we do all of those with a very small budget when it comes to actual program expenditures. And a very small amount for signage and banners to help advertise when something's happening. Our print and mail line is for color copies, and the resource cards, which are double-sided 4x9 and have every kind of resource we could imagine on there that's local and available, as well as some national. And we print and we hand out about 2,500 of those a year. And they have been really a significant tool for people to have with them and know what they need. Every other year, this line increases for the Every Door direct mailing campaign that will be appearing in next year's budget, not this year. And we send information to every household in 12561 zip code. And we will do that again. So at last year's budget time, the request was made for $9,900 for the purchasing line. Print mail was $1,450, and the contractual line that had all of those different things was for $21,782. That this year, the requests for those lines, those in bright yellow, denote a decrease in the request. So purchasing $5,900, print mail $1,450 remaining the same. Contractual is a slight decrease at $21,575. In 2023, we had ARPA funds. We had the ability to use some funds to purchase equipment for events like the 20x40 tent, which would have cost me almost $600 each time I used it. I paid $990 for it. We've already used it 3 times. It's paid for itself. So it's those kinds of things where we could look to capitalize on a resource, right? We were able to do that, and now we have it going forward. The bouncy house, there's things that we're using at multiple events, and that benefit other departments, not just the Office for Community Wellness. If you look at the different activities, you can see how, right, they're impacted by different budget lines, right? Some are only, like, for instance, the resource cards. If you look at resource cards, which I don't have a laser pointer, but if you go down, resource cards is the 4th line down. It is a line that has only an X in printing and mailing, right? Because you're printing cards and you're distributing them, right? So it only has a printing cost attached to it. Whereas other things, you're having to buy the supplies, you're having to utilize the community, the media outreach person and so forth, right? And the tech. So different things are impacted in different ways as far as where the funding comes from to cover those expenditures. The fourth and final column off to the right, the far right, is the escrow line. And that is extremely important. That escrow line was created so that there were things that could be supported by our partners. When I mentioned to you that I managed this grant, right? The goal of the DFC project, again, was to build an infrastructure, right? Their set amount was 125,000 for 5 years, each year, 125. No increases, right? You had that amount of money, and the expectation was that you were to grow the effort and make progress in the community. We're giving you this much. To get it done, you have to work together, people, right? You have to work together. And with shared conviction and compassion and commitment to the issues, agencies and organizations collaborate. And people would be like, well, I can contribute this, I can contribute that, right? The expectation of that grant is dollar for dollar match. If you're going to get our 125,000, you have to demonstrate and document $125,000 worth of in-kind contribution. We exceeded that amount every year. And in year 5, we exceeded it greatly by we had $179,000 worth of in-kind contribution in 1 year in this community. So I can't fundraise, I don't fundraise, but the community has a history of coming together and sharing resources to make things happen. Sometimes that's an individual, but you'll see in a lot of these cases, it's organizations who it's in alignment with their purpose. I literally have a program in Kingston, a county program, that director would call me at the end of the year when she had a budget surplus and say, what do you need? And she'd make purchases, she'd contribute. That organization has contributed over $20,000 in the last 7 years. Every year, they know the value of what's happening here, and they consistently give thousands of dollars to make sure that Recovery Fest happens, that holiday hoopla happens, that the movie nights happen. None of that would happen with the operating budget. So, it is really a kudos. This is really a celebration of this community for me to make this presentation. Because people used to say to me, you talk about we, but you're a department of one. And I say, yeah, but it's like the Verizon guy in the 90s. I got my network. And it's all of those organizations that make this possible. So to that point, here's the timeline of contribution. And it's really significant to highlight this because if you look in 2017, when that escrow account was created, because again, my position didn't officially begin until 2017. When it was created, we had $500 of contribution. In 2018, that number doubled, right? It went to $1,165. And then in 2019, it went to $3,515 and then to $3,600 in 2020. When the full impact of the lockdown and the pandemic hit, look at the contributions. 5,500, 9,500 almost, 6,800. This year will be 8,200 at least. There's other folks that are wanting to support and are doing things on their own. So we have seen since year 1 of this program, a 1,550% increase in community support. Where,
if you don't mind, sorry.
No.
I could wait.
I think the next slide is going to answer your question. Is that what you're going to ask? Where's the money coming from?
So in those figures, for those figures,
Yeah,
that's coming from.
it's coming from these sources. So if you look at the top bar, right, you will see that these are all members of community. These are all community partners. 6% of the funds that have been contributed have been from individual community members. Several of them were individual members of Rotary who donated as community members. Some of them were family members of individuals who lost someone to an opioid overdose. And they really wanted to do something to support the effort that was being done here for opioid overdose prevention, which has been extensive. The bulk of that contribution is Ulster Prevention Council, 55%. That does not include the items that they purchased on behalf of the Office for Community Wellness. That's just the money that they donated to help cover the operating costs and to co-sponsor events. Step one, another very supportive organization, treatment provider, New Paltz Rotary, New Paltz PBA, and the New Paltz School District Foundation came to the rescue when we were working together, trying to figure out how to provide youth in this community and a safe opportunity during lockdown where they could be social and safe. And so we started the Halloween window painting. This month, well, next month is the 5th anniversary of that. And then we know the pandemic didn't end, right? And so there became a spring window painting project because kids could paint outside and they could still be together. And it was an artistic, creative expression. It was an opportunity for them to create. It was an opportunity for pro-social recognition and social involvement. So the activities that happen through this are really steeped in a foundation of prevention science. And the budget really helps make a very small budget when it comes to programmatic and contractual lines, right? Really make this possible. And, you know, I've had a lot of experience having to try to make a lot happen with a very little amount of money. But that experience has paid off. And again, it couldn't happen if it weren't for this community and the support that's in it, to be honest. I'll end with this. I really encourage folks, if you have not yet signed up for the newsletter, check out, the website, see Diane Fossey. She's tabling at various places, Elting Library, Fourth Fridays, different types of groups that are meeting at the library. She makes sure to get there, and other community events, and will continue to do so. She's had 11 already, tabling specific separate tabling events. We are really maximizing our resources and all our skills in the best ways that we can to expand and grow the effort, and it's working. And that's what's really exciting. So I'll leave the website up. Again, there's parts that is going to be added to. It's not complete. But it is the place to go to get updated on what's new and happening, and will be coming up. So if you have any questions for me, things that I can try to provide clarity. Yeah, sure. Sure. Where would you like to go?
I guess that pie chart.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So how are donations acknowledged? If you get a check, who writes the thank you check? I mean, people get an acknowledgement.
Letter.
The thank you note.
It says thank you for your donation of $25.
Yeah,
but it's a donation. I mean,
yeah.
Even if
There
it's not
are
tax deductible, there's some kind of acknowledgement. We received your money. Thank you.
I reach out to the people that are contributing. Sometimes it's a handwritten note, sometimes it's an email when it's an organization. It depends on really who it is, but they are acknowledged, and some people actually don't want to be acknowledged.
Could we make that a step though? If we get a check and then there's cash, I mean, the town doesn't accept cash anywhere,
Well,
right?
sometimes it's
So
No.
there's never a donation
Sometimes-
jar.
food, or sometimes
No.
it's, it's food or it's supplies.
During an event,
I tell people it's free.
Okay,
And
so there's no donation jar,
so-
so we don't have to worry about cash. None of that is, okay,
Registered organization or an individual.
yeah,
okay.
I wouldn't say there has never been cash. When we did New Paltz Eve, there would be people who would be very frustrated when I tell them it was free, and they were like, it can't be free. And then when nobody was looking, they would stuff you know, a $10 bill somewhere. And,
Okay.
and it was at the Reformed Church. And then, you know, at that time it was Betty, Reverend Betty, and she would come over to me and she'd say, Phoenix, you know, or Carol Roper, and would come over and say, somebody left you some money, and it would go to fiscal and then they would deposit the cash.
Okay.
But all of the contributions that are coming in are very specific. And actually the thank you letters, there are thank you letters that the supervisors sign to those different organizations. Ulster Prevention Council got a letter. Step One got a letter from
Okay.
the supervisor. So it's
So we know how much every single organization and individual wrote a check for.
absolutely, because it's in the
Okay.
escrow, it's in the register.
And there's
So it's in the report.
$36,000 in that account.
Over the, not now, that's over the course of 7 years.
Okay, so when I was doing the vouchers and I saw things coming
Mhm.
out of that line, that's the first I learned about the escrow
Mhm.
account. And so it looks like the balance is fairly low in there. It's like down to around $2,000 or something.
No,
Is that
No,
not the case?
it's over 5,000 right now.
Okay. Anyway, I just want to make sure that, you know, there is some sort of ledger somewhere that, you know, this 55% of community donations, we can, and if they want to be anonymous, that's fine, but somebody knows that anonymous donor wrote a check for an amount of money, and that's all ledgered out somewhere.
That's all in there, but I just want to clarify, 55% is the Ulster Prevention Council. There's
Oh, I'm
several
sorry.
shades of blue. So I just want to make sure that you understand.
Oh, community.
Community is 6%.
Oh.
Okay, Rotary is
different shade of
10%.
blue.
Yes, different
Okay,
shades of blue.
got it.
So I'm
Okay.
sorry, but when I tried to change that, it
That's
made it
okay.
worse. And I had to go with
Yeah,
what was
that's fine.
provided. 55% is the Ulster Prevention Council.
Okay,
But any organization receive thank you letters. And town supervisor, you know, at that time, many of those, Neil was the supervisor at that time, so Neil signed those letters.
and
So
the
there
checks
were
are made
letters.
out to,
Town of New Paltz
Town of-
dash community education.
okay,
So that fiscal knows that it goes into the escrow.
okay.
The checks are photocopied. I mean, it's all kept.
And
a
since
record.
we never solicit those,
No,
they are just voluntarily donated, okay. Then there was a slide before that.
mhm.
You know, I don't want to not cut this short, but we do have a very.
I know we do. I don't know, you know, maybe I should just say, I did just want to say that I got a call today, interestingly, from someone who was looking for a referral for drug rehab.
Mhm.
So I went to your site. There was Acadia, recommended by the Ellenville Regional Hospital Center, who's one of, in a way, I think you're doing too much. I think you have too many partners, because Acadia was just exposed by the New York Times as a racket. They're imprisoning patients until their insurance bills are up high enough. So I don't feel like it should be your job to vet every single one of the referrals that your trusted partners send. But I think maybe we should reduce the number of trusted partners to the ones that you can personally vouch for.
Yeah.
Because
I will
it
take a
was-
look
it-
into
you know,
that.
it's Acadia. It's the first one on the list. And it just jumped out at me.
Which
'cause
which website were you looking
yours, it's the other orange one.
Okay.
This is.
Yeah, I'll look into it and be in touch with you. Kate.
Yeah, I mean, I just think you've expanded so much that even though you're in a department of 2,
Mhm.
you can't track these hundreds of agencies. And I'm sort of feeling like what people want to know is, where can I send my child, husband, whoever locally that
Right.
takes Medicare or
Mhm.
takes Medicaid? So-
Right, no, I understand.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I'll look into it because the
Okay.
one local resource page is specifically only local agencies.
There
So
is one.
I have
Somehow
to, I
read
have
it
to
on-
look to see
I'll
what,
send it to you.
because I'll look into that and make
It's
sure
a
that
New
gets
York
fixed.
Times article on Acadia that's worth.
Yeah,
reading.
I will definitely look into that.
Okay.
Because
Okay,
the one
thanks,
page we have
Phoenix.
is really
I'd
only
like to make
local
a comment.
residents. Yes.
That my family particularly has benefited from the programs, particularly in the beginning years, and that I participated in those programs. I remember one program that we had which was a meditation activity for young people
Yeah.
to consider other alternatives than, drugs, etc. And we were doing meditation walks inside the old town hall. And during those walks, I realized the poor condition that the building was in. And I say that just to give you some indication of the help. I am particularly pleased about this, the use, the service, the beginning of services in Spanish, because we have a population that lives in the shadows,
Mhm.
in the polls, in significant numbers.
Yeah.
That have great needs and make great contributions to our community. So I thank you for the presentation and the work that you've done for, it's
Yeah.
15 years now, I think?
13,
years
yeah,
now.
in the 13th year.
So thank you very much for that effort.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes,
you.
thank you.
All right, thank you so much for your time and attention.
So.
And your, the
Phoenix,
use of your chair. I did close out,
Mhm.
I did close out the presentation. I'll take it off the laptop.
Thank you very much.
Good.
Okay,